Imagine for a moment that everything you thought you knew about one of the most photographed women in the world was built on a timeline that might not actually exist. This is a story so carefully constructed that even the smallest crack could bring the entire narrative crashing down. For years, the world has followed the rise of Meghan Markle, the actress who became a duchess. But recently, whispers have grown louder. They're no longer confined to obscure corners of the internet. They're coming from someone who was there at the very beginning, her own father. Thomas Markle has stepped out of the shadows once again, and this time, he's not just asking for reconciliation. He's pointing to a detail many believe has been hiding in plain sight, the truth about her real age and the possibility that parts of her history have been deliberately shaped. As of early 2026, the situation has taken a deeply emotional turn. Thomas Markle, now 81, has survived a life-or-death health crisis in the Philippines. After undergoing major surgery, he lost his left leg and is currently in a rehabilitation center, working through physical therapy while waiting to be fitted with a prosthetic. Even in his most vulnerable moments, his message has remained the same. He wants to see his grandchildren before it's too late. While he seeks reconciliation, the public and legal scrutiny surrounding his daughter's past continues to intensify. His son, Thomas Jr., has spoken openly about what he describes as a shocking silence from Meghan, even after reports that she sent a letter to his hospital bedside. What was once a private family dispute has now become something much larger, a catalyst for a global examination of the Sussex timeline. When a father nearing the end of his life claims that his child's official birth year is incorrect, people don't just listen. They start investigating. Much of the speculation about Meghan's real age often begins with a piece of evidence that is difficult to dismiss. In a digital world where almost anything can be altered, printed records carry a different weight. One detail that continues to capture attention is a 1997 issue of 17 magazine. Unlike a blog post or social media caption, this was a major publication with strict editorial standards. On page 90 of that issue, there's a feature highlighting a young aspiring actress named Meghan Markle. Next to her name, her age is clearly listed as 21. This is where the timeline begins to unravel. According to the widely accepted narrative, Meghan was born on August 4, 1981. If that were accurate, she would have been just 15 or 16 years old in 1997. A respected teen magazine listing a minor as 21 isn't a simple typo, especially during the 1990s, when publications were extremely cautious about age due to legal and modeling considerations. If she were truly 21 in 1997, that would place her birth year around 1976, a 6-year difference that could significantly reshape the understanding of her early life and career. What adds to the intrigue is the apparent lack of motive at the time. In 1997, Meghan wasn't a global figure. She was a student seeking early opportunities, with no major public image to maintain. There was no royal connection, no global spotlight, so why alter such a fundamental detail unless it reflected reality? Some argue that she may have adjusted her age to access more professional opportunities. However, the possibility of a 1976 birth year appearing in multiple places has only fueled further speculation. That single magazine page became the first domino, raising a broader question. If the starting point of her timeline was shifted, what else along the way might have been reshaped? The trail didn't end with archived magazines. As curiosity grew, attention shifted to her college years. When old photos from Meghan's time at Northwestern University resurfaced, they introduced a new layer of doubt. Typically, university social circles consist of peers within a close age range. Yet the individuals appearing alongside her in these images seemed to suggest a timeline that didn't quite align with the 1981 birth date, leaving observers with even more questions than answers. One image that has resurfaced again and again online is a group photo from a university salsa club. A former classmate, Iris Amador, shared the nostalgic snapshot, showing a young Meghan in a black turtleneck and jeans, smiling alongside 4 other students. At first glance, it looks like a typical college moment from the early 2000s. But a closer look at the graduation years and reported ages of the people in that photo begins to raise questions. Many individuals in that image, and within her broader social circle at the time, have birth years ranging from 1972 to 1975. If Meghan were truly born in 1981, she would have been a 19-year-old freshman socializing almost exclusively with 26 and 27-year-old seniors and graduate students. While not impossible, it's unusual for someone that young to integrate so seamlessly into a group nearly a decade older. Observers have pointed out that her demeanor, style, and overall presence in those photos don't reflect someone in their teens. Instead, she appears to blend in naturally, as if she belongs within that slightly older age group. This theory gained further traction when online researchers began cross-referencing alumni records. Her name repeatedly appears alongside graduating classes that would place her closer to 50 years old today rather than 44. The reason this matters, critics argue, is because in industries like Hollywood, and even within royal circles, youth can be a powerful asset. Presenting oneself as younger can shape public perception, influence casting opportunities, and reinforce a particular narrative. However, when someone becomes globally recognized, inconsistencies become harder to contain, especially when former classmates are still around and remember exactly when those milestones occurred. The transitions between different phases of Meghan's life have also been described by some observers as fragmented, as though certain details were smoothed over or omitted entirely. This leads directly to claims made by family members who insist they weren't distant observers. They were present, watching events unfold in real time. According to them, one of the earliest misrepresentations involved the only child narrative. A central figure in this controversy is Samantha Markle, Meghan's half-sister. Now 61, Samantha was born in 1964. The widely accepted version of events suggests a 17-year age gap between them, a detail Meghan referenced during her interview with Oprah Winfrey to support her claim of growing up as an only child. However, Samantha has strongly disputed this, even taking the matter to court. She argues that they were not strangers and that the age difference was exaggerated to create an image of isolation and independence. According to Samantha, the gap is not 17 years but closer to 11 or 12. If that were true, and if Meghan were born in 1976, as some theories suggest, it would place their age difference at around 12 years. This aligns more closely with Samantha's claim that she has clear memories of Meghan's childhood and that they shared meaningful time together. If accurate, it challenges the narrative of an only child upbringing and suggests a more connected family history. The dispute has escalated beyond public statements. Samantha pursued a defamation lawsuit, with a significant appeal hearing taking place in late 2025, focusing on what she describes as false claims about their relationship. The divide within the family appears deep, with Thomas Jr. also speaking out. He has suggested that the version of Meghan presented to the world is not entirely authentic, but rather a carefully constructed persona shaped for public consumption. They point to the fact that Meghan lived full-time with her father during her teenage years, while her mother, Doria, was pursuing her own path. This period is often downplayed in official biographies, which tend to emphasize a struggling single mother narrative. Critics argue that by adjusting timelines and distancing herself from her older siblings, Meghan may have reshaped her origin story into something more aligned with a royal image. But why would anyone go to such lengths? The answer, some suggest, lies in Hollywood itself. In that industry, age isn't just a number, it can define or limit an entire career. Once a certain narrative is established, it becomes difficult to reverse, especially on a global stage. By the time Meghan married Prince Harry in 2018, the stakes were no longer just personal, they were institutional. The wedding at St. George's Chapel wasn't merely symbolic, it carried legal significance under UK law. In the United Kingdom, providing false information on a marriage certificate can be considered a serious offense under laws like the Perjury Act. Details such as full name, parentage, and age are expected to be accurate. This is where the age theory becomes more serious. If a different birth year had been recorded than the one officially recognized, it would raise legal and ethical questions on an international stage. Observers have questioned why the royal institution, often described as meticulous and thorough, would allow any discrepancy. Some believe there may have been no reason to doubt publicly available records, especially given Meghan's established career in the US. Others speculate that even if inconsistencies were noticed, the priority may have been to avoid disruption to a highly anticipated royal wedding. The potential fallout from a last-minute revelation would have been enormous. Another point frequently raised by skeptics is the absence of a widely released, definitive birth certificate from the hospital where Meghan was born. While various claims have circulated online, no single document has been publicly presented in a way that definitively settles the debate. Over time, this lack of clarity has only fueled further speculation. Questions around official records intensified with the birth of her first child, Archie Harrison, in May 2019. What should have been a moment of celebration quickly became a topic of confusion. The initial announcement of the birth came after the baby had already been born and brought home, breaking with typical royal protocol. Then came the birth certificate itself. About a month later, the document was quietly amended, a move that drew attention from royal watchers. Author Omid Scobie reported that the change was directed by palace officials. The alteration raised eyebrows. The name Rachel Meghan was removed from the mother's section and replaced with a formal title, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. To many observers, this unusual adjustment only deepened the mystery. Instead of clarifying details, it added another layer of intrigue, leaving critics and royal experts alike asking the same question: what, if anything, is being kept out of public view? While some argued that the change mirrored the naming style of Princess Diana, others were quick to point out that Kate Middleton has consistently used her full legal name, Catherine Elizabeth, on her children's birth certificates. That raises an obvious question: why remove legal names at all? Among skeptics, a common theory is that the name Rachel Meghan Markle is tied to a specific birth year and identity that may have become harder to maintain under scrutiny. By replacing it with a royal title, the document effectively becomes age-neutral. According to official spokespeople, the amendment wasn't requested by Prince Harry or Meghan, yet the fact that it happened at all has led some to believe there were concerns about maintaining consistency in the Duchess's official identity. When combined with the couple's decision to break royal tradition, such as not appearing on the hospital steps after the birth, the timeline begins to feel, to critics, unusually controlled. Harry later suggested that some of these choices were not entirely voluntary, which only added to the speculation. As attention shifted to the details surrounding the birth, observers began questioning whether aspects of the pregnancy narrative aligned with typical medical expectations. In the medical field, maternal age plays a critical role in pregnancy care. If Meghan was 37 when Archie Harrison was born and 39 when their daughter arrived, she would already fall into what's medically termed a higher-risk pregnancy category. This typically involves closer monitoring, more frequent scans, and cautious delivery planning. If, however, the alternative timeline proposed by some critics were true, placing her in her early to mid-40s, the level of medical complexity would increase significantly. In his memoir Spare, Harry described Archie's birth in a way that drew attention from medical professionals. He painted a calm and almost effortless scene, Meghan using a yoga ball, laughing gas, and even mentioning that he ate food during the process. He also claimed they returned home just 2 hours after the birth. For a first-time mother in her late 30s, or especially mid-40s, such a quick discharge, particularly after medical interventions, would be highly unusual in British hospitals. Recovery time and standard observation procedures for both mother and baby typically require a longer stay. These perceived inconsistencies have fueled speculation, including improving claims about surrogacy, rumors that remain controversial and unsupported by verified evidence. For those who believe the age-related theories, however, the explanation is framed differently. They argue that the narrative may have been carefully shaped to present the Duchess as younger, more energetic, and effortlessly maternal. Again and again, the discussion circles back to a familiar idea: the influence of image-making. In a world where public perception can define reality, some critics believe that the story surrounding Meghan reflects not just personal history, but the enduring power of a carefully maintained public persona, the Hollywood mask. It's the idea that after spending years in an industry where adjusting your age is common, it can become second nature, something you don't even consciously think about anymore. But the consequences of that kind of image management are very different when you're an actress on Suits versus when you're the mother of children in line to the British throne. In Los Angeles, it's often considered an open secret that some actors tweak their birth dates. We've seen similar discussions around figures like Jessica Chastain and Rebel Wilson, whose age became a topic of public debate after claims surfaced from people who knew her earlier in life. In Hollywood, turning 30 can dramatically change the kinds of roles offered, and opportunities may begin to narrow. For someone like Meghan, who spent years working toward a breakthrough before landing Suits in her 30s, critics argue that the pressure to appear younger could have been significant. Presenting herself as being in her late 20s might have extended her time within a more competitive casting bracket. The challenge, however, is that what might be overlooked in Hollywood doesn't translate easily into the world she later entered. Moving from the entertainment industry into the British Royal Institution meant stepping into a system built on lineage, documentation, and historical accuracy. In that context, even small inconsistencies can attract intense scrutiny. What might have begun as a minor adjustment for career reasons could become far more complicated over time, especially on a global stage. This brings attention back to Thomas Markle, who spent decades working as a lighting director in Hollywood. His experience within that industry gives weight, in the eyes of some observers, to his claims about image building and narrative control. To them, he isn't simply speaking as a father, but as someone familiar with how public personas are shaped. Now, at 81 and recovering from serious health challenges, he appears focused on sharing what he believes to be his version of the truth. So, where does that leave the bigger picture? Supporters of these theories point to a collection of details, a 1997 magazine listing an age that doesn't align with a widely accepted timeline, university photos suggesting she blended seamlessly with an older peer group, statements from Samantha challenging the official family narrative, and public records that have sparked debate. Individually, each of these elements might be explained as an error, a coincidence, or a misunderstanding. But taken together, critics argue they form a pattern worth questioning. At the heart of it, though, is something more human than numbers or timelines. Thomas Markle is in a rehabilitation center, hoping to reconnect with grandchildren he has only seen in photographs. Whether Meghan is 44 or 50 doesn't change that fundamental relationship. Yet if her public identity is built on a carefully managed narrative, some believe that reconnecting with someone who remembers a different version of events could carry risks beyond the personal. It could affect the image itself. Ultimately, this story isn't just about dates or documents. It reflects a broader tension between public image and private reality. In a world where branding can shape perception, the truth, whatever it may be, often remains buried in old records, archived publications, and the memories of those who were there before global attention took hold. What do you think is really happening here? Is this a case of overanalyzing small inconsistencies, or do these details raise reasonable questions? Could someone maintain a 6-year difference under intense media scrutiny, or are these claims simply the result of a divided family seeking to be heard?